All right, a very good morning, everyone. We warmly welcome you all to the Entrepreneur Motivational and Entrepreneur Skills Development Program organized by the Young Planners Forum of the Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka. So, entrepreneurs are often thought of national assets to be refined, motivated, and remunerated to the greatest possible extent. Entrepreneurs can change the way we live and work. If successful, their revolutions may improve our standards of living. In short, in addition to creating wealth from their entrepreneurial ventures, and they also create jobs and conditions for the flourishing society. So, yes, the entrepreneurship is an important skill to be developed. So, most importantly, the nature of success requires ambition, hard work, ethic, inspiration, and motivation. The words of great business owners showcase tools that they have used to inspire themselves. So, as as well as these entrepreneurs are important, it is a must to take care of them at their starting level. So it is a must to take care of them by advising them, by inspiring them, by motivating them, by uh, giving them the exposure of experienced entrepreneurs in the society. So, in order to achieve that target, the Young Planners Forum of the Institute of Town Planning Sri Lanka is initiating the Entrepreneur Live webinar in order to enhance the entrepreneurship skills of especially the planning community of Sri Lanka, especially the young planning community of Sri Lanka. So that's a brief about the session. Once again, a very good morning, everyone. We warmly welcome you all to the session. Today we have two great personalities who's ready to express themselves, who's ready to give you valuable insights about entrepreneurship. So before start of the session, it is a must to move to our mother organization before start of the session. So first of all, I would like to invite the chairman of Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka, Dr. Jagat Munisinghe, to deliver his message before start of the session. Dr. Jagat, the platform is yours, sir.
Thank you, Sahan. Mistakenly, I have already gone with part of my address. But anyway, very good morning to all of you again. As I said, I'm so happy to see that we have about more than 60 people attending the event. And also at the same time, it's very good that we can see that the young planners are taking initiatives. Now this World Town Planning Day 2020 is the 79th, as I can remember, is the Town Planning Day around the world that is celebrated. But this time, of course, we have to celebrate it under restricted conditions. So whatever it is, now just to give you a little bit of a background to the initiative, I'm sure the young planners, you always work with a very good kind of understanding of what you are doing, and also with some type of visionary kind of thinking. Now, most of the members, those who are here in the of the YPF as well as the ITPSL, I'm sure that you must be, some of you must be kind of thinking a little bit, why this entrepreneurship, what is its relevance to planning, and how is it going to, because so far in the history, we have not celebrated a town planning event like this with this kind of webinar. This is the first time that we do. One reason is that we are restricted. The second is that our theme is a bit different, because otherwise we have been talking about sustainable cities or kind of energy conservation or whatever. There are things, lot of things that we have been talking, but it's very different this time. So to talk to you a little bit about it, and the mother organization, that is the, just as Sahan said, have seen that the potential of the young planners, and also we know that you are the future of this institution and also the planning of this country, and also maybe sometimes, of course, an impact that you can make at the global level. We have realized your potential, and we know planners have been conventionally playing the roles of either the kind of initiators or facilitators or the kind of promoters or sometimes project managers and many more. But it's high time that we think about a new culture, that is the entrepreneurial culture, that there's no way that we can think about doing things on our own in a kind of challenging situation that we face today. From one side, we have this pandemic, and we don't know what kind of things will come in future with this kind of epidemics. But at the same time, we know that we have a lot of political instability and also some economic kind of recessions, things like that to come in near future. So with all that, we got to think about what should be our role and what should be our kind of intervention with the society and also the physical or the environment in this country and also around the globe. So in a situation like that, I believe this entrepreneurship is something that we must develop skills within us, especially you young planners. I'm so sad to say that I'm not young anymore, but anyway, that I believe I still have time to kind of work with you all. So whatever it is, I congratulate the young planners and also thank you very much for organizing this event, and also thank to our kind of invitees and also our resource persons. I know that Dr. Nirmal and Savera, you have been making history. I know that you have been contributing a lot towards this entrepreneurship and the kind of innovations and all. So with that regard, I thank you for sharing your time with our young planners and giving them some insights as to how they should be kind of thinking and new ways of doing things. And without taking much time, okay, I'll thank you again, and let's start the important discussion. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jagat Manasinghe, the chairman of Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka. Yes, he said that he's not very happy that he's not young right at the moment, but he has a young mindset. He's always bringing up these innovative ideas for us, especially to guide the younger generation. So, sir, you really don't have to worry about that because you have a young mindset which lead the younger generation to innovative paths. So thank you very much for the valuable insights. Thank you very much for the motivation you have given. All right. So this is not just a webinar. This is not just a webinar where you use the webinar and listen to the speakers and grabbing some ideas, and then we don't let you go off. So this is a part of a process. This is the first step of our process. So I'll briefly explain what is this entrepreneur program, what is this about. So the first step is about creating an awareness about the importance of entrepreneurship, and the first step is about teaching the younger generation, especially the younger planning community, the importance of entrepreneurship and how to start a business. What are the basics? What are the tactics? That sort of thing. So as the first step, we're enhancing the awareness and to make a platform to rethink towards entrepreneurship. So as the second step, after this webinar, we'll give you the chance to prepare business proposals, especially the planning community, the youngsters. So we'll giving you the opportunity to prepare business proposals, startup proposals, that sort of stuff. Then we'll be, as the third step, we'll be evaluating your proposals and we'll be helping you to develop your businesses in terms of providing resources, in terms of providing intellectual resources and bringing you the motivation, bringing you the knowledge that you need to enhance your business proposal. So this is a process. This is not just a webinar. As the first step, today we are about to begin the live webinar on the Entrepreneur Live webinar. All right. So let's start off the session. It's time to introduce the speakers. So I don't have to give very long introductions because today we have two great personalities here to deliver their insights. So first of all, I'll introduce our first speaker of the session. So he's an award-winning business leader and also an entrepreneur. And also he's a public speaker. Most importantly, he's an impact investor and a real estate expert. Also, he's an associate professor in business. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Nirmal De Silva, our first keynote speaker today. Very good morning, Dr. Nirmal. Hope you are having a great and safe weekend. So, we warmly welcome you to the session, Doctor.
Thank you, Shahan. I want to all of you all. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you very much for that kind introduction, Shahan. Very happy to be here today on this beautiful Sunday morning.
All right. So next we are looking forward to introduce our second speaker of the day. So she is the founder at Ananta Sustainables, and also the former CEO, MSS Packaging Industries Private Limited. She is a well-known entrepreneur in the country, most importantly, a well-known female entrepreneur in the country, a well-known business personality in the country. She's none other than Savera Weerasighe. We warmly welcome you to the live webinar, The Entrepreneur. A very good morning, Savera.
Thank you, Shahan, and to the Young Town Planners for having me. And morning, Nirmal, and I'm excited. I'm also really surprised to see so many people on a Sunday morning here, so that's really exciting. And thank you, Jagdish, for having me.
All right, so we have a very good audience today. We in numbers and also with all the things we have a good demography as well, and we have elder people, we have experienced professionals, we have experienced urban planners, we have the younger urban planners. So we have a very good mix, and we have two great speakers as well. So I think it is high time to start off the session. We would like to start off the session with a bit of a experience sharing approach. So yes, especially with the prevailing COVID-19 situation, so there's a big buzz about job availability of the country. So will it be possible to find a job? That is a very crucial problem right at the moment. And also, according to our natural instincts, we always like to start new things. We always like to have our own business. We always like to start off something. So it is just about the start. The beginning of the session is just about the start. It is about the beginning of everything. So we would like to forward the question to Savera. So let's share experience about how it all started. Just share your experience about your very first step, because starting something is the hardest thing of a process. So if you have courage, if you have knowledge, if you have skills to start something, it is just about working out your proposal or working out your ideas at the next step. So how it all started? Let's share your experience about that, Savera.
Sure. Well, first of all, I would say I would not really recommend being an entrepreneur because I think it takes a lot, and you don't realize how much it takes of you. But I really like this this notion of only do it if you can't stand not doing it, because there's such a burning need within yourself, but also just within kind of the environment that you're in. So for me, it was starting it was not because I was CEO of MSH Packaging, and already there was a lot of responsibility. So starting an enterprise was, yes, I mean, it's exciting to think, wow, I'm going to be my own boss, and I'm going to have, and I'd had a startup before in New York. But it's an exciting, and there's a lot of conversation around how, it's exciting to be an entrepreneur. But I think the first question one should ask oneself, and I definitely did, was, what would it look like if I didn't do this? Is it really necessary? And the only reason I started Ananta was because I was running a forum to understand what was happening with waste in Sri Lanka, and just realized that there wasn't really access to sustainable packaging. And I was not looking to start my own business at all. I was just trying to make sustainable packaging more available. And therefore, it just kind of snowballed into becoming its own business. But I think that especially during lockdown, and especially during the kind of the times that we're in, the really unique times that we're in, when we're really having to learn to swim in uncertainty, I think it's really important to ask, what do we really need right now? And I think we really need people and businesses really putting again, people and the planet at the core of anything that they do. And I would say even more than, trying to start one's own business, there are so many struggling entrepreneurs and startups, and really supporting them, being the second and the third and the fourth person on that team is really going to make their impact, amplify their impact and make their impact so much greater. So I'm really a believer of collaborating and amplifying the work that social enterprises are doing. And I really think that our future, if it is to not look so bleak, we need to we need to move away from business as usual, and businesses need to kind of embed people, society, communities, the environment in it. So that was kind of my motivator for starting. And I was running a company, so I just started it as a brand. I just wanted to make packaging more available. It was not with any intention to have another startup or be an entrepreneur. It was an accident, I would say.
All right. So thank you very much, Savera, for sharing your insights about that. So we'll get back to you. So next we are moving to Dr. Nirmal. So Savera explained about how it started and how we have to collaborate with the prevailing situations, all sort of things. So the question we would like to forward you is that yes, it's about starting something. Yes, after starting or before starting, how a young entrepreneur should determine their targets in the journey of business development. How a young entrepreneur, a young businessman should determine their targets in their entrepreneurship life. Just give some tactics, technically and practical.
Sure, Shahan. Once again, thank you very much for inviting me. Um, so I think in order to answer that question a little bit more detail and add justice to it, I think I need to take a little bit of a back step and look into my past and my beginnings, humble beginnings for that matter. So I was a very mediocre student in school, and I was not somebody who will expect to achieve many milestones or anything of that nature. But I came from a very strong sporting background. And a few things that I learned from that background is that the importance of focus, the importance of discipline, and more importantly, the importance of understanding how to deal with both winning and losing. And I think in terms of being an entrepreneur, one of the things that you need to keep in mind is that life is not rosy. It's not what you hear and see in social media or traditional media. There's a lot more going behind it. So in order to answer your question, I think every one of us need to have a target. Some of us have a dream which we misinterpret to be a target. A dream for me is almost like a vision, right? It's something that you need to achieve and you need to drive towards that. But the methodology of how we achieve that dream is through simplified targets, or we say smart objectives and targets. And that's something that I do day in, day out. My mantra in life is very simple, Shahan. It's to be better than what I was yesterday. As a philosophy and operationally, I do not compete with anybody else, because if you try to compete with others and you try to outdo others, that's the time that you will be really struggling, because you're not going to utilize your inherent strengths in order to be your best version. So my advice to all young entrepreneurs or prospective entrepreneurs is that always keep measurable targets. Focus on the process of achieving these targets as opposed to the outcome. More often than not, when I speak to a lot of young entrepreneurs, when I mentor them and so forth, they're talking about valuations of their companies, when they're going to exit, which countries that they are going to enter. It's always about the end destination for them. But for me, what is more important is the journey, because you need to enjoy the journey. You need to overcome the obstacles associated with the journey. And during that time, you need to reinvent yourself. So another tip that I can give in terms of targets is that make it time bound, right? Do not allow it to go on and on. And if you feel that no matter how much you give in effort, you can't achieve that target, try to further simplify it or move to a new target. And that's where I think my sporting background has helped, because whenever you do any sport, you understand the importance of being focused. More often than not, with everything and the drama revolving around us in the world and in our own lives, we tend to forget about what is most important and focus on it. We tend to focus on things which are control. Always try to focus on things which are within your control. Even within this COVID-19 pandemic, what we need to be thinking about is not necessarily the pandemic and the outcomes, but how to deal with it and how to adapt faster. The third thing about going through any target, a tip that I can provide is always believe in yourself and have a good network. Surround yourself with people that you can go to and ask for help. There's nothing wrong from asking help from others, because end of the day, it's about being the best version of yourself. So these are some of the tips, Sahan, I can provide with relevance to setting targets in your entrepreneurial journey.
All right. Thank you very much for the valuable insight. So he was just expressing the importance of setting targets. So once Denzel Washington said that dreams without goals are just dreams. So he enhanced the importance of setting targets, measurable targets. So he enhanced the importance of that. So I would like to forward another question to you, Dr. Nirmal. So you were talking about uh, personal growth, you were talking about setting targets, you were talking about developing businesses, you were talking about asking help and all these things. So how do you define a successful entrepreneur? Yes, you can set up targets. Yes, you can set up measurable targets. Yes, you can achieve step by step all those targets. But how do you define a successful entrepreneur? And in terms of successful entrepreneur, would you like to share your story? Do you have any role models that you looked at and identified that this person is a successful entrepreneur? This is a good role model. Just share your insights about that.
Sure, San. So I think again I would like to take some examples of my personal life. So very early on in my entrepreneurial journey, success meant a lot of unwanted things. It was in terms of how much of wealth that can be created, how many companies that I can build, how many countries or new products that we can enter in with, and new markets that we can enter in. So those are always very relative oriented goals. But alongside time and maturity and the stage that I am now in my life, I think success to me is all about impact. Just like Savera, I'm also a strong believer on how social enterprises can impact the world. And it's not about the profits that you generate, it's about how much you can impact. Uh, Even today, me attending this program is to see whether I can create impact at least by 5% in the minds of participants, right? Where they can enter into the marketplace, come up with new entrepreneurial ideas to solve real world problems. So for me, success is all to do with impact now. And also, success has to be something that you can cherish and you can share with others. If you cannot do that, end of the day, life is worthless. See, Shahan, we need to understand one thing. Contentment is a very important virtue that all of us need to have. And more importantly, we live in this world for a very short period of time. When we leave this world, people need to remember us for the impact that we've created, not the success that we've achieved. It's a very simple mantra. No matter how you try to define it, that's the reality. And that's what it boils down to. Because the day you leave this world, none of your materialistic things will be taken with you. And we see that with COVID-19 and so forth, right? Even a funeral has to be done within less than 24 hours. So that's the reality. But coming into the question a little bit more deeper and looking at it from a practical point of view, we need to have role models. We need to look at others to inspire. And I think I don't need to go any further. One of the biggest role models in my life has been my father, because he, just like most Sri Lankans, we come from a lower middle class family, and he worked his way very hard in the corporate world. But he became an entrepreneur by chance at the age of 50 years. And in his own mindset, he took in the plunge to be an entrepreneur, and also enjoy the benefits as well as the challenges of being an entrepreneur. So that showed me that for you to be an entrepreneur, age doesn't matter. Secondly, for you to be an entrepreneur, whether you're young or old, the challenges and the opportunities possibly remain the same. So yes, he's been a very strong role model. Even now, whilst I do a lot of mentoring, advice, and so forth, uh, I do not think twice to go back to him and ask for some guidance, because end of the day, we are lifetime learners, and I believe in understanding from others and learning from others. So it's extremely critical to have role models. And also, I think, realistically speaking, I've had a very good circle of friends, a network of friends who we've been able to challenge each other. We've been able to share our successes and failures in life. And that matters a lot, because sometimes in this entrepreneurial journey, you get singled out. It's a very lonely journey. When there is success, everybody talks about it. But being entrepreneur is extremely lonely encounter. And as a result of that, you need to have people that you can go and talk to. So I'm quite blessed to have wonderful family, and friends who supported and guided me during the most darkest hours. So, and if they are not role models, and if they do not inspire me, I don't know where I can get inspiration from.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. So I would like to forward the same question to Savera to have a very short answer. Savera, do you have any role models? And in your mindset, how you define a successful entrepreneur? I think Savera is muted. Can a host unmute Savera?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. All right.
Um,
You got the question, right?
yes, I did. I'm just trying to think what I think of as success. I mean, I think, to kind of reiterate what Nirmal said, I think the thing that I realized transitioning from, running a manufacturing company to, a small startup is just seeing each individual. So when you run a factory, you see, all these people are numbers on a spreadsheet, and it's the moving from seeing each individual as a representative of a life, of a livelihood, of a family, is, I think, how can you impact or make each one person's life better, and then you move on one person at a time. So that means, starting from the team that you have, how can what is the dynamic and how do you make your team feel, then extending that out in terms of impact. And so it is definitely about the people that you meet and how you can impact them with the work that you do. And in terms of role models, I think that I really like this advice of always try to be not to be the smartest in the room, to be the stupidest in the room. Not stupidest, but just to make sure that I'm always surrounding myself with people that I really admire and I'm inspired by, and also that I'm always struggling to keep up with in terms of ideas and thoughts and conversation. So I think that I don't have one role model that I want to emulate, but it's more about surrounding myself with people that I want to learn from and take certain characteristics and build, just be the person that I want to be. So it's not necessarily a role model that's an entrepreneur or doing something in particular, but more it's just surrounding myself with people that inspire me and learning from them to take those paths that inspire me and kind of instill it in myself. So I don't know if that answers your question directly, but that's definitely how I look at it.
All right. So we have another question for you, especially let me give a brief description about the demography of our audience. So majority of the audience are female personalities. So, especially in the planning community, if we go back to the university times, we have a department called Department of Town and Country Planning. That is the department which give the undergraduate exposure to the young planners. So, more than 90% of the students
I think Shahan got stuck.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Just now, I missed your question, Shahan. Sorry.
All right. So I was explaining about the demography of the planning community. So more than 90% of them are female personalities. They are girls. So yes, with Katsuri Wilson becomes the first female group CEO of Sri Lanka. Now the female personalities are starting to take up the business world as young entrepreneurs, young business leaders. So what would you like to express about that? How a girl would look at starting of a business, how a girl would look at being a young entrepreneur? Because yes, we know most of the dominating business personalities were male personalities in the past, but now the paradigm is shifting. The girls and the female personalities are taking over the business world gradually. So what kind of a message would you like to deliver as an example, as a role model, what you can deliver about that particular segment?
Well, first of all, I think no entrepreneur needs to be defined or identified by their gender. I think true
Absolutely.
equality is saying, I'm a human and I'm going to do it regardless of if I'm a woman or a man. That being said, I think we are in a society that women are at a disadvantage. Only most of the time it's based on mentality, like the fact that people will say, oh, it's great for a woman entrepreneur, and I'm like, I don't see myself as a woman entrepreneur separate from an entrepreneur. I'm just an entrepreneur, or I'm just doing what I need to do. But I think that we need to step up. So I see that, from whether it's accounting to engineering to town planning, you see 70-80% women. But then when you go to hire someone, the women aren't stepping up. Why? Because society has not given us a narrative to really believe in ourselves. There's this kind of doubt in ourselves of, and there's enough statistics to kind of show that of, just asking for a raise or a promotion, or just even asking to be paid a fair price for the work that you do as a consultant or whatever it is. Women have a far harder time asking for what their work is valued at, as opposed to men. And that's a social narrative that's happening. So we really need to step out of that and say, you know what, I need to compete at the same level. I shouldn't be looking at myself, oh, I'm good as a woman. No, I'm good. Full stop. So I think that's really important. But I also think that men need to really do a lot too, because they need to really recognize that there is a disadvantage, that there is a disparity, and you may not see it in a management role or in a company or in this kind of most of the circles that we're in, but it is there, and you can ask any woman about it. And as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, as any of these things, I've definitely experienced it. I don't give into it, but that takes a lot of confidence, and it takes a lot of just steel. That it is not necessarily easy all the time. But I do think that men also need to recognize that they also need to say, listen, there's a difference between equality and equity. Equity is recognizing that there is a disparity and saying, okay, what do we need to bring them to the same level? Whereas equality is saying, oh no, everyone's equal, that's great, let's continue. But that's not the case in society. It's not the narratives that exist. So I think that we both need to play a role, because men and women have different skill sets in the way that they think. And I think that you need both of those for strategy and for going forward in, being productive. So I think men and women both need to harness both their male and female qualities, and that might sound a bit strange, but I really do think that there's a gentle kind of fierceness that women have, and a dynamism, and then there's an amazing, like, go forth focus that men have. And I think if you can balance those skills in one person, whether you're a woman or a man, I think that's really important. And I think it's not just about being a woman entrepreneur and like being singled out as, oh, this is, Kasturi is a group CEO not because she's a woman and they need to check a box, but because she's the best person for the job, right? And I think we need to say what is going to make us the best person for the job. Men and women both say who is the best person for the job, and say, okay, there are gaps that we need to bridge. And I think it has to be a collective effort of, progressive thinkers saying what is the best for our planet, what is the best for our future, and really question the status quo. We need to say, where are we? It's not just gender that's an issue in Sri Lanka. It's ageism. It doesn't matter how intelligent or what your experience is if you are perceived as young. So I'm a young woman. It's just, it's mostly assumed that, I've been in board meetings where someone say, can you take the notes? I said, what makes me the note taker as opposed to anyone else? But these are these gender stereotypes that we don't even realize that we're being put into. Not that I love taking notes, but it's just when you're being singled out for something that you may or may not be, you need to question why that's happening and what needs to happen to bridge those gaps. So,
all right, I think that's the greatest explanation we can expect for a question like that. So, my dear colleagues, the gender doesn't matter. It's all about you creating a personal value for you and start achieving your targets, start achieving your goals. So next we would like to move on to one simple announcement. So if you have any, please put your questions in the chat line, or if we will have a Q&A session at the end of the session. So if you have questions, please forward your questions. Your questions are very valuable for us, especially to be more interactive. It is not just us talking and you guys listening. So you can also forward your ideas. You can also forward your questions to us. Please forward the questions, and at the end of the session, if anyone is willing to unmute their mics and raise questions, yes, you can do that. All right. So let's get, we were talking about ideologies, we were talking about the way we think, the way we should think. Now it's time to get a little bit practical. It's time to get a little bit, it's time to give practical advices, practical tactics for the young entrepreneurs, because that is what matters the most. That is the main objective of the this webinar. So I would like to move to Savera first. So yes, the urban planning field is has a diverse set of subjects like environmental planning, real estate development, construction, and many other segments, regulation, regulatory planning, and many kind of subject fields. So from this very diverse set of subjects, give some tips for the young entrepreneurs how they should develop a business concept that which is capable of give them the personal growth, as well as which is capable of giving a valuable output to the society as well. So any tips on how to develop a successful business concept, because it is not just about starting a business. You have to develop a business model, you have to find investors, you have to find a successful way of working out your business, all depending on the concept, all depending on the subject you select. Any tips about selecting a particular business concept or a subject from a very diverse set of subjects?
Oh, I don't know if I'm the best person for this, but I'll give it a go. I think, well, I can only speak from my own experience. For me, the environment and, marginalized communities have always been my interest. And that's where I feel like there's a lot of impact that needs to happen. So I think having that at the center of how can we design business models around, harness, market forces to impact these people, and designing business models around them. But I also think that a lot of the time, this notion of, being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of, prestige around it, and I want to be this entrepreneur. But I think, and, coming up with this amazing idea that's going to be, the next unicorn startup, that's kind of the narrative around being an entrepreneur and having a startup. And I think it's more important to go out and listen to the people that you're hoping to serve. And that could be just your customer, it could be whatever demographic that you're trying to serve. But this notion of just design thinking, where you go out and you listen to what's being said or what's actually really needed, and you map that out, and then you say, okay, these are what's needed. How can we design a product that's within that framework? And then, I'm sure Nirmal knows of this idea of a minimum viable product. You don't try to build and pump in money to have this like beautiful, amazing thing that you imagine that a market would want based on, statistics and research. It's actually going out and building a really simple skeleton and saying, is this what you really want? Who do you want to serve, and how, and what is the impact that it's going to have? And then design. So really learning to listen, I think, is what is going to shape. And I think, business models shouldn't be these concrete things that are going forward, but instead should be dynamic, should be like clay. It should be listening to what is needed, so you're able to pivot when necessary. Like Nirmal said, it's a difference between saying, I want to, achieve these international markets, and I want to, be big, and you think of all the end goals. But if you just have a target, and how you're going to achieve that target may change multiple times, based on what people need and what your demographics need. So I think listening, and also just, trying to have as much impact with what the world really needs right now is more people saying, how can we serve better? How can we serve people and the environment outside of ourselves and our family? And I think we have all the tools, the technological tools, we have the connectivity to really make the change that we so desperately need in these times. So.
All right. Thank you very much, Savera. So I would like to forward the same question to Dr. Nirmal as well. So what are your insights about that?
Right, Chan. So I think fundamentally it will be interesting and important to note what is the role of an entrepreneur first. In my humble opinion, entrepreneurs are people who solve problems. So if you are looking at a business or entrepreneurial idea or a concept for that matter, first and foremost, you need to identify what is the existing gap in the market. What problem are you trying to solve? It's very important to understand what is that gap. So that's my first advice and first tip. Secondly, you need to understand and see, in order to fulfill that gap better than others in the market, have you got the skill set? Now, that doesn't mean that you need to have all the skills, but at least you have some of the primary skills required to be able to quantify that opportunity. And do you have a network or a support mechanism that you can go to in order to obtain the skills that you may not have? That's the second thing. The third thing that you need to understand is that 8 out of 10 startups or entrepreneurial ventures fail within the first 2 years of operation. And if you look at it, there is a number of reasons why they fail. But one of the things that keep on coming up over the last 2 decades, if we do a lot of research on it, is that the product market fit or the solution market fit not being there. So sometimes you may feel that you got a super product or super service or a solution, but unfortunately your customer doesn't feel so. And that's where the concept what Savera mentioned, the MVP comes into play. And one of the things of the MVP or the minimum viable product is that you need to start testing your product or service with your target customer base. Now, let's take a few examples related to town planners. Now, we know the world needs solutions when it comes to housing, whether it be low-income housing or affordable housing for that matter, community housing. Then we need to look at the environment and urban redevelopment. And urban redevelopment alone is a very large area. Then we need to look at areas like climate change and how town planners can play an important role in terms of creating impact. Likewise, the use of information technology for GIS related matters and so forth has huge scope in the world. And as you very well know, Sri Lanka has still not hit the regional level of urbanization. And there are a lot of master plans and so forth which we have done for this country. But end of the day, these plans have to be driven by smart people, smart entrepreneurs. So what we need to start looking at it is in all these opportunities, how are you best going to capitalize on that? So if you find a gap, as I said before, if you can solve a problem, if you can test it with the market, the question is what is stopping you? I think that's the notion that we need to start looking at. And more often than not, we have become very compartmentalized like a society, right? So we go and study a subject area and we feel that the opportunities are only within that subject area. Just because you're a town planner, in the area of research and consultancy alone, for a town planner, the scope is huge compared with 10 years ago, right? We see global issues coming up. We see within Sri Lanka things like the port city coming up. And a classic example I always say is that what is important now is not your subject knowledge, the knowledge of understanding Mandarin. Because if you do not know Mandarin, the chances are it's going to be extremely tough for you to get a job at the port city, which is a Chinese developed project. And we are part of the One Belt, One Road initiative. So if we are trying to be different to others, if we are trying to capitalize and think and act like entrepreneurs, the mindset has to be very critical. Sometimes it's not always your skill set, it's definitely the mindset. Whilst everybody is trying to complete a qualification in town planning, if there's one smart soul who will go and do a 6 months course on learning Mandarin, they are going to be slightly ahead of this commercial game. They are going to be ahead of looking at world opportunities. And for me, that's a simple notion. If you want to solve problems, you need to have the right mindset.
All right. So, with your insights, I would like to forward another sub question, which has come from your insights. So, you were talking about developing these skill sets is an important factor as well as the mindset. So, if what sort of skills a young entrepreneur should develop? What are the essential skills that a young entrepreneur is going to need?
Yeah, so there's a few skill sets, and of course, this will depend from one one's personality as well, and the learning methodology that they are most comfortable with. But critical reasoning is one very important skill set that entrepreneurs need to have. Not going with the flow and really challenging conventional norms, reasoning out why is it happening in this way and how can we do it differently. A classic example is if I ask 20 people within the forum today to give us solutions for the traffic congestion in Colombo, all of y'all will be thinking in a traditional sense of what you have learned within your subject course, etc. But if you all start to critically reason out and look at ways and means of solving problems, that is going to keep you ahead of the rest. So critical reasoning is one skill. Secondly, adaptation of information technology or adaptation of technology alongside your knowledge base. So at the moment, you can't individually go and try to solve problems or be successful in entrepreneurial venture if you do not adapt to technology. For example, I've met a lot of urban planners who have no clue in terms of doing their own 3D modeling. They have to go to some other expert or they can't remember. And they feel that 3D modeling is somebody else's job. And now with YouTube and advent of technology, you can learn these things very quickly. So it's the adaptability of incorporating technology. The third skill set, especially when it comes to the planning community, is that you need to be able to have discipline. Sometimes patience is not only a virtue, but a very important skill. Everybody wants to be successful overnight. Everybody wants to be a consultant overnight. Just because you get one consultancy project does not mean that you are a consultant. You have to be able to deliver innovative solutions, and you need to be able to get more and more customers coming in. The fourth element, unfortunately, that I see with the planning community is that the relationship skills seems to be rather questionable. I think it's very transactional oriented still. So if you need to be good entrepreneur, you need to have some good customer relationship skills as well as marketing skills. You need to be able to market your own self, not the profession, because the profession is something that they will compare anyway when you are given a job. So you need to have good relationship and marketing skills. Innovation goes without saying, another skill that you need to have. Last but not the least, you need to really know your numbers, because end of the day, to run any entrepreneurial venture, you need to understand how to manage your finances and understand numbers. A good example is, if every planner in the country was given one opportunity to quote for in a tender, and if everybody went and reduced price alone, uh, everybody is going to lose margin, and the chances are that you will never be able to provide a good service. But what are the other ways of adding value? The world is looking, the customers are looking for people who can derive value. And price alone, competing on price alone, fees alone is not the only way forward. So know your numbers, understand it, and use those numbers for your own benefit. These are some of the skills that I could recommend for the planning community.
All right. So, any insights about that, Savera? So, what any insight about the essential skills that an entrepreneur needs to develop? I think the host needs to
No,
unmute her.
I'm muting and unmuting myself.
All right. That's great. That's great.
I honestly, I'm figuring it out myself and trying to. So Nirmal's advice is probably far more apt. But what I can say is this: I think that town planners are probably, like, just the skills that you're learning are probably already at an advantage, because you're probably considering so many different elements. I mean, I personally think town planning is such an essential thing, because I mean, look at the way the ebbs and flows of energy and people and economics is so much based on, where there are gridlocks here and gridlocks there. And I think, just even considering all the factors that need to go into town planning, like, that's what an entrepreneur is doing, right? All of the time you're considering like 25 different things happening simultaneously. It's not just, your business model, but it's also the suppliers, employees, money, you name it, all the legal stuff that no one tells you about, to inland revenue, to taxes, to, there's just so many components going on at the same time. It's a living and breathing organism. And so I think when you're town planning, I think that you're considering all of these elements anyway, so you're probably at an advantage to see how to assess and compare all of these different elements. And I think that some of that thinking would be really, really helpful as an entrepreneur. And I think that I've been thinking a lot about this. Is just a little bit of a side note, but I've just been thinking about the value of public spaces. We need spaces to have civil discourse, because God forbid we're in a really terrible way in terms of racial undercurrents, or religion, or any of these divisive rhetoric that's given in politics. So, like, the need for public spaces for all of us to come together and interact, because there's so much social disparity. So when you're designing things like that, I mean, those are the areas that I think social enterprises should be looking at. How do we create more spaces? How do we create more community products, using all the digital tools that we have at hand? So I think that using, as Nirmal said, using the skill set that you already have, and you don't have an MBA, or you don't have to have a business degree at all. I definitely don't. I'm not saying I'm a good entrepreneur in any, I'm still really, really learning. But I think just drawing upon your skill sets, you may be an artist, a graphic designer, you need all of those things. And I think the ability to think outside the box is trying to say, I can draw inspiration from nature. I think biomimicry is amazing, so being able to have this kind of diverse perspective and drawing from all different areas to inspire, to draw inspiration from, and design your startup is really important. So I think maybe town planners have an advantage.
All right. So next we are moving on to the next segment of the discussion. So we discuss about the beginning of a business, and we discuss about the essential skills that you need to develop and what are the opportunities available. So one of the most critical problems that a young entrepreneur has to face is that finance, having a capital and finding a capital to start their businesses. So but before anything else, so any tips? Would you like to recommend any tips to find the initial capital you need if you do not have the initial capital at the very first phase of your business? That would be the first question. So I would like to forward the same question to both of the speakers. First, let's move to Dr. Nirmal.
Yeah, Shahan. So I think first and foremost, to answer that, people or prospective entrepreneurs need to think out of the box and move out of your comfort zone. Uh, See, end of the day, I do not believe that capital or access to capital is the biggest barrier to get into entrepreneurship. Maybe 15, 20 years ago, there were not many opportunities to raise capital. But mind you, now there is phenomenal amount of opportunities for good ideas, for strong, passionate people, where people will come and invest. And in fact, if you look at from the impact space that I'm closely working as well, the numbers are phenomenal. It's roughly about 600 trillion now in terms of the overall opportunity. Now, if I take a simple example of being a real estate consultant with a planning background, you don't need the capital at all. You just need a laptop, decent communication skills, and probably an internet connection. You can use social media to describe what type of services that you can provide. You can go by bus, you can go walking, look at properties, look at what are the best properties available, and you can provide certain investment related advice and real estate advisory related consulting. So there are a lot of opportunities at the moment that requires little or no capital. I always tell young entrepreneurs, if tomorrow somehow somebody comes and gives you 10 million US dollars to set up your own business, you're going to fail. Because just because you have money doesn't mean that you're going to be successful, because you will have no clue on how to take it forward without a strong business model. On the other hand, if you feel that you need $10 million and realistically you're strong about your idea, you're convinced about it, and if you have just $1 million, for example, it's also not going to be sufficient, because you're still 9 million short to really solve that problem. So having too less money and too much money are both issues. Now, how to raise money is two ways. One is internal and one is external. Internal is that just like most of us, we started off our businesses, ventures, bootstrapping from our own funding or from friends and family, right, who believed in the idea and who contributed. Now, from an external point of view, there are some fantastic opportunities available in Sri Lanka, in the region, and at a global level. There are Kickstarter campaigns that people can raise money. There are crowdfunding opportunities where you can come and say, I have this idea, I would like you to fund it, and you can create crowdfunding opportunities. Then on top of that, there are a lot of startup events, entrepreneurial events, where you can go and pitch your idea And even if you do not win it, you'll get ample mentoring and other support services which are going to help you in your overall journey. Now, people are more often than not think that debt is the only way possible, and banks are not going to give us debt as a result of collateral. And this is where the power of equity-based investments come in. In Sri Lanka, especially the younger generation I see are very scared when they hear the word equity. The idea is, why should I give my idea and part of my company for people? The thing is sometimes better to own 60% of your company than owning 100% of nothing. Because if you do not get investors to come and invest in you, if they do not share the same risk that you are going to take, investors are going to take risks. That's why they're putting money in you. They are believing in you to drive that business. Always look into that opportunity. And at times, when you speak to your friends and family, also look at it from an investment perspective. Do not look at it from a relationship perspective, because then you will have the financial discipline. If you, for example, borrow 100,000 rupees from your parents, tell them that you'll pay them back in 2 years' time, or give them part of your company, or tell them that you'll pay them back in interest. It's like a debt equity scenario, right? Where you take debt first, and if you perform well, it gets converted into equity, or the other way around. So, likewise, you need to be focusing on looking at your overall business model and look at the multiple ways in which that you can raise money. Secondly, look at all the unnecessary costs involved in your business. At times, I see a lot of young entrepreneurs want to have a fancy office, uh, buy in all the technology, and they spend more money getting into the business than investing that money on the real business. Uh, the first 6 years of my entrepreneurial journey, I did it from home. The first 2 years I did it in my vehicle, actually, because I didn't have office space, but I ensured that I met at least one new customer a day. That was my own target, which I set. And other than the fuel and my own management time, there was no other cost. The other thing that we need to keep in mind when we are going to raise money is that sometimes passion alone doesn't matter. That's why I told you one of the important skills is to understand numbers. Any prospective investor, even a donor, will want to understand and see whether you really understand the financials involved in this model. Does it really scale up? So do not go and tell people that I got a fantastic idea. This is going to be $1 million business, and let's tell them that I have it in my head. You need to create a model. You need to go and pitch it. You need to go and convince people. And if you really convince, I can vouch for you now. I've seen this a number of times. There are enough and more opportunities to raise capital in Sri Lanka alone than what it used to be a decade ago.
All right. So I hope if any young entrepreneurs who are struggling to find finance, find the initial capital, I think you received a great answer. I think you received some great tactics, and I think you received some very innovative insights about the management of your finances. So I would like to forward the same question to Savera and share her experiences about finding that initial capital, or I would like to specify the question furthermore, rather than asking how to find the initial capital. So yeah, without even having an initial capital, how a young entrepreneur should carry out with their business concept, with their business model, because it is not it is going to be definitely a roller coaster. You won't get the initial capital at the very beginning. You won't find you won't meet your initial needs in the very first few years of your first few days or very first few years of your startup career. So without having the initial capital, how would you recommend a young entrepreneur to work out their business model?
Sorry, I would say partnerships, finding people that are doing similar things and who are doing things who are doing what you're looking for on the ground already, and finding the right partners. Because I think trying to do like this idea again of the, trying to do everything by yourself, whereas most of the time you have to bootstrap this startup, right? So like Nirmal said, you do what you can, you put in your time and energy, then also finding the right partners so that you can offer them value, but also you can there's a mutual exchange. So I think finding the right collaborators and partners is really a good way to go about it, instead of, at least for Ananta, when I was building it, I really wanted to be as asset light as possible. So I didn't want to have an office space. I didn't want to have any infrastructure. So I was really interested in like, how can we have a remote business that only has an online shop? So how can we really cut down any excess? So it's a really, really lean model. As far as capital goes, I had a unique, and I was blessed to have a unique situation in that I was running a company that my family owned. And I wasn't looking to start a business. I was just looking to make sustainable packaging more available to individual consumers. So that initial investment came from the company that was running, and then it now has spun off as its own startup. So we still have that initial investment that we need to pay back. So in terms of a successful startup, it's not that as successful as most people think. But I would say again, like the thing that's been really amazing for us is that allows us to be really light in terms of not having to pay rent, and we have a really great team and everyone works from home. But we also have all these digital tools. We have Asana, we have WhatsApp, we have Zoom calls, we have all of these online shop on Shopbox. So finding the right partners so that you have to spend the bare bones to get the function of your business. And that's why I spoke about the minimal viable product. So I think saying, okay, what's the least amount that I need to put in, but where are all the partnerships and collaborators that I can bring in, so that I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. That's the thing. I think there are so many, in any idea you do, there's probably someone doing something very, very similar. So looking to partner with them, I think, is a really good way to go about it, as opposed to think, instead of your kind of ego leading and saying, I want to do this, I want to be my own boss, I want to do all these things by myself. I think there are amazing people doing amazing things, and like looking to partner with them and adding value to what they're doing, amplifying what they're doing, but also trying to, do the thing that so effective and good partnerships is, I would say, is a really good way to go about getting what you want done.
All right. So I think we can discuss for hours and hours about this field, but we have a very limited time frame. So with that, we are going to conclude the discussion session and move to the Q&A because we don't have much time left. So I would like to, I received a few questions which were arising in the chat line. The first two questions, I would like to put these questions as one question to Savera. So I'm going to read the question as it is, then I will forward the question. So I have two questions to you, madam. Firstly, it is about, as a female entrepreneur, what are the barriers and the challenges that you have faced within your journey? And as entrepreneur, what are the things that you think need to be improved with our personality, especially for females in our country? And also we have another similar type of a question which we can relate to that question is, one of the participants are making a point that yes, there are opportunities, even though we have 90% of girls in undergraduate program, the opportunities are like 50-50. So that we have to, that female personalities have to take up that 50% which is not available for them. So what he's raising is that there are available opportunities, but girls are not willing to take them. So how would you like to motivate them? Because if a girl is given an opportunity to work in a place where very away from their home, they are not willing to take it. So they are always trying to stick in to a particular niche. So that is what he's explaining. So I would like to forward those two questions to you, Savera. The first thing is about your journey as a female entrepreneur, how you face the barriers, and what would you like to give, what sort of insight would you like to give to motivate the young girls to take up the opportunities which are available in the job market?
So I think first step is not thinking of yourself as a young girl, because I think that's the narrative, right? Girls are, sweet and need a lot of support and can't do this. And I think the self-talk is really vital. And the minute you put yourself in, like, men are called men, and girls and women are called young girls, and you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage, because if for some reason that narrative, that rhetoric is need some kind of support system. So I think women really need, especially Sri Lankan women, really need to believe in themselves enough to say, I need to take this step, I need to be a little bit more independent. All of the freedoms that are allowed for a man, we need to step up and take them. And that might be, not needing to go with your friend or your mother, or you don't, it's scary. And yes, it's much easier if you have someone holding your hand. But the thing is, if you really want to go forth, no one's going to hold your hand. You're on this journey by yourself. And that's not to say you can find a lot of running partners, people that are going to walk beside you and support you. And women really work well in teams and groups. That we're not solitary creatures as much. So I think harnessing your own independence and saying, just believing in yourself. And it's not easy, because the social narrative, especially in a South Asian country like Sri Lanka, just, every time I'm trying to do something, my grandmother's like, but you're going to do it by yourself? And my, are you going to walk on the street by yourself? And yeah, you're going to have to do a bunch of things by yourself. And
it's all about breaking the stereotypes, right?
Yeah, and it's hard. It's not easy, because everything is, every question is, when are you going to get married? And I said, that's not my priority. I'm sorry. My priority is to, be the best person that I can be, and achieve the things that I want. And so I think it's this self-talk of, doubt. We need to stop doubting ourselves and just do it. Take that leap of faith, and it's going to be scary. It's going to feel pretty weird in your stomach, but do it anyway. And I think in my experience, it's always been that kind of, but are you going to do this, and why are you going to believe that? I've sat in meetings with, some of the largest industrialists in Asia, and I'm there to have a meeting and negotiate a price, and they want to know when I'm going to get married, and I can, feel bad about that, or try to answer that question, but or say, sorry, I find that an irrelevant question, and quite frankly, quite disrespectful, because I don't see you asking anyone else in this room that question, and kind of, having to go forth. And this might sound a little bit gung-ho, but this is the inequity that we need to address. So I think we just need to believe in ourselves and find people who believe in you also, and are able to, when you are not able to see all of the skills and facets that you have, find people who reflect those, who mirror them, but also give you the confidence to go forth. And I think that women have an amazing skill set that we haven't really even harnessed, because we're still playing to a narrative that's been given to us. And I think that, yeah, if you reach out. I'm also trying to figure this stuff out. And I surround myself by really amazing, powerful, inspiring women. And if I can help any woman in any way, I'm happy to do that. So savera.weerasighe@gmail.com. Email me.
All right. Thank you very much for that valuable insights. So we have another question. So the question is, first of all, thank you very much for sharing your experience and giving us a lot of inspiration on the field. I was able to understand the depth, challenges and approaches to overcome them. So may I know, as a young planner, I do have the urge of exploring and involving in entrepreneurship, even though I'm not sure how to apply academical knowledge as planners and combining and benefiting from that is a business prospect. So what are your thoughts about that, Dr. Nirmal? So she's directly forwarding the question to you, Dr. Nirmal.
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, for the moment, let's forget about your subject knowledge. If you like to be an entrepreneur, if you're willing to take the risk, and if you are willing to move out of your comfort zone, uh, please do it. I think I am a strong advocate that this country and the world needs more entrepreneurs, because uh, more often than not in this country, we have grown up to have a excuse driven mentality. We have excuse for everything. And on top of that, we also have, unfortunately, an entitlement driven mentality. I am qualified, I need a job. That type of thought process. So, if you have a passion to be an entrepreneur, my first suggestion is start reading more about entrepreneurship, watch videos, and try to speak to as much as possible entrepreneurs that you can find. And you don't need to go to these top-notch, well-regarded entrepreneurs. You can go and even meet the daily wage earner who is an entrepreneur himself or herself. Go and speak to them on what ticks them and get in a little bit of inputs on how to drive your idea. The second scenario is, as I mentioned before, is to identify a gap in the market. And when you understand there is a gap in the market and you need to find a solution, whether you like it or not, some of the things that you learned in the subject area will come into the picture. Now, let me give you a good example. In Sri Lanka, I feel there is a very limited number of landscaping specialists who are looking at the green environment and who are looking at out of the box thinking when it comes to landscape architecture. So you might be coming from a planning background and you may also be having a passion towards a more green oriented environment, creating green spaces, etc. And that's where your subject knowledge will come into play. But there is definitely a gap in that market. Secondly, using recyclable materials in terms of construction, whether it's a villa, whether it's a chalet, whether it's a bungalow or a holiday home, try experiencing and experimenting with things because it's a sustainable building. Even if you take simple things like converting a container into some type of housing or living space, that itself is sustainability. And that's what planners can do. So look at then how you can incorporate your subject knowledge into the practical perspective. Last but not the least, you have to be willing to take risks, as I mentioned earlier as well, because entrepreneurs who do not take risks are like cricketers who can't face the moving ball. Right? It's like batsmen who can't face the moving ball. It's simple as that. So risk taking has to be there, and you need to be starting to challenge. Do not feel frightened about failure. Unfortunately, our education system is all about passing everything, and failure is almost shun upon us. But the scenario is that in every day of your entrepreneurial journey, you have to be prepared for failure. So, and use that failure not to feel pity about it or not to feel bad, but use that failure as a strong point in terms of moving ahead with your business and learning from that. So, those are some of my practical oriented tips that I can say. And last but not the least, do not wait for any excuse, whether it's COVID-19, COVID-20, COVID-21, or who knows, COVID-30, right? Stop giving excuses. If you are an entrepreneur, try to figure a way out and try to figure out a way faster, better than the others. Because mind you, everybody else is facing the same dilemma as well. If you are smart and if you are faster to the game, it's the survival of the most adaptable, unlike the survival of the fittest, as it used to be before.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Amal, on that valuable insights. So, so we are running out of time, but we would like to give an open invitation to the audience. So, if anyone would like to raise another question, do not just put it on the chat. Just unmute your mic and forward your question. So, let's see if anyone has to forward a question to our speakers. You can just unmute your mic, just click that raise hand option, then the host will unmute your mic, then you can forward the question. So let's try to get a question from, all right, so we have a question, I think. Do we? All right, seems like we do not have further more questions. I think it's already 11 a.m. in the morning. It's time to wrap up the session as well. All right, we have a question. All right.
I have a question. My question is how to use the law of attraction in the business as an entrepreneur. I know that you can't give fully described answer step by step for my question, but your simple try will be a great assistance to me.
Sorry, I couldn't get the first part of the question properly.
How to use the law of attraction in the business as an entrepreneur.
Law?
Law of attraction.
Okay, law of attraction, right. So, well, the scenario is very simple, right? Whether you look at it from a philosophical perspective or a theoretical perspective, the reality is that if you have a customer and you have a product or service to provide them to solve that customer's problem, first and foremost, you need to be able to definitely attract your customer and show that your product or service is different to others. And that can only happen if you have really understood your customer and if you really have understood the problem that persists with the customer. More often than not, I see a lot of people trying to solve the symptoms of a problem and not necessarily the problem per se when they're coming up with new products and services. I'll take a very quick example from a town planning perspective. Let's imagine that you have been given a contract as a consultant to come and redevelop some of the suburban areas of Sri Lanka, right? Let's say from Kaduwela onwards, you have been given the task of solving the urbanization issues. Now, if you look at it from a traditional sense and try to incorporate everything related to what you've learned without understanding from people within the Kaduwela Pradesh Sabha and that suburban area, what are some of their real challenges? How is the traffic problem? How is the garbage collection problem? How is the pollution problem? And if you do not understand from the community what type of things that they are looking at, you can never plan that town properly. And in order to attract and specifically use your own terminology of law of attraction, you can only attract a community if you can understand that community well. And I think that's the notion that I would like to leave a thought with you, that it's about understanding your customer or your community or your business partners for that matter, and trying to get into that level when trying to solve problems.
All right. So I think we have one more question. So can we move to the question quickly? Because it's almost 11 a.m. in the morning. All right. Can we quickly move on to the question? All right. Okay, here we go.
I have a question. So I'm pointing my question to Savera. So in this present, in the market, there will be same types of productions by different producers at present context. In such occasions, there will be some obstacles in competing with the market. So in such occasions, how can we overcome as a new entrepreneur to this market arena?
I would say look at the market and see, compare those products and see there's always a gap somewhere, and see how you could add value to if it is a saturated market. I think that's what you're asking, right? That there's similar products, and how do you kind of approach that? I would say compare the products and see how you can add value. Or maybe it's that maybe you're not trying to sell that product, but maybe you can move one step up the supply chain and say, how can I, make it easier for these people to sell that product? So it may be a service that you provide, or, so I would say, look at the whole supply chain and see where you can service, because I think that the usual kind of capitalist market looks at competition, 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 but I think there's a lot to be said about cooperating and collaborating. So again, seeing, okay, how can I help these businesses become better? So I don't produce all of my products. I would like to support local manufacturers as much as possible, but the products that are not available or not manufactured here, I source them out. So for me, it's not, I'm not trying to produce those products, and there are other people that are doing it, but it's more of how can I remove the barriers to entry or access? So, by trying to deliver it in 24 hours or island wide, or, payment, everything is online. So how can I provide a service or an add-on to make that product better? Does that make sense? So it's not about just looking at only at the products and saying, oh, I can just, put a little pattern on this and add a little bit of that. Compare it and see, how can I actually add value? How can I make this better? And if it's a great product, then see to, try to reverse integrate and see where in the supply chain you can really add value or service.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for the two thought-provoking questions, and thank you very much for the answers as well. I think it's time to wrap up the session. So before wrap up the session, I would like to invite the chairman of Young Planners Forum of the Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka, Mr. Dilshan Samarsinghe, to deliver the word of thanks.
Little bit, I have to change my designation. I am the chairman of Young Planners Forum. Thank you, Shahan, for inviting me to deliver the vote of thanks in this very good webinar we had today. As you mentioned earlier, this is not just a webinar. We have a long run plan. We asking to submit a business proposal rather than just a webinar report, right? Therefore, take maximum out of this event. We are sending your reports into the experts in the field and evaluate it and back until you back yourself and until you ground your own business. And therefore I requesting you all to take the maximum out of this event. And I want to thank Dr. Nirmal De Silva and Ms. Savera Weerasighe to be here and inspire the young and whole planning community today, because today is very important for all of us in the planning community, because we are celebrating the World Town Planning Day. And we have moved forward to the entrepreneurship skill development programs in this year and help all the planning community as the YPF to develop these skills. And thank you very much again, Dr. Nirmal De Silva and Savera Weerasighe, to be here and inspire us and at the very good day we are having. And I have to thank Dr. Jagat Munasinghe, President of Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka and Honorary Secretary of the Institute of Town Planners Sri Lanka, Planner Vincent Janadipan, and the whole ITPSL committee to guide us to have this kind of a very good event. And you have very supportive to us to framework and deliver this kind of a very good session today. And I have to thank Shahan Atma, who was the moderator today, and you have done an amazing job today, and you you have be the most uh, uh, attractive guy we have met in our moderator in my life as the moderator, and we have take you opportunity take you at the events in the past and at the future as well. We are hoping to contact you as the moderator, and thank you very much, Shahan, to give us to deliver your best today. And I have to thank the planner Asanta Bandara, who was the ITPSL mentor to the YPF. You deliver the best out of you to ground this event, and you was the back end of us every time, and you done a marvelous job with the YPF. And thank you very much, planner Asanta Bandara, to be with us. And Mr. Malik Senaviratna, even you were in UK, you was you supportive for us, and you done an enormous job to ground this event and frame this event very successfully today. And I had to thank the Young Planners Forum, committee of the Young Planners Forum, especially Harshani Vijayavardhan, who was my hand in organizing this kind of event, uh, and other committee members as well. And thank you all to organize and help to organize this event and organize this event as a group event. And I must thank all the members of the YPF who supportive to us and who support us as even in a word to ground this event very successful today. And finally, I had to thank all the attenders today, be here with the YPF and be here mm, be here today at the very important day in our planning career. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sahan.
All right. Thank you very much, the chairman of Young Planners Forum, for delivering the word of thanks. All right, I think it is time to wrap up the session. I once again thank Dr. Nirmal De Silva. He's an award-winning business leader, an entrepreneur, public speaker, impact investor, a real estate expert, and associate professor in business. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your valuable insights with the planning community. And also, I would like to thank Savera Weerasighe, founder at Ananta Sustainables, former CEO, MSC Packaging Industries Private Limited. I think we had a wonderful 1.5 hour. So we managed to deliver valuable insights. I hope we managed to deliver valuable insights for the young planning community. So this is not just a live webinar. This is the first step of our process. So as a second step, it's time for you to develop your business proposals. It's time to you to develop your business concepts. So it is start building your business concepts, or if you already have a business concept, forward your business proposal to us. So we are ready to guide you until you ground your startup, until you ground your business in the ground level. So it is high time for you. Our first duty is over. We brought two amazing speakers and gave you valuable insights on how to start your business and how to be an entrepreneur. Now it is time for you to give your business concepts to us. Next, we are here to evaluate your concepts and guide you for the future proceedings. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We'll join you in another valuable webinar like this. Once again, thank you very much for your valuable insights, my dear speakers, and thank you very much, everyone who joined us today. All right. Stay safe and start developing your business concept. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.